So you're watching this video because you're not feeling super hopeful about the future, and I don't blame you. You've been faced with a lot of bad news for a long time. Anytime you go on social media, log into any sort of device that can access the internet, you're hit with, or really bombarded with, a lot of bad news. There's a lot of scary things happening. The climate biosphere is collapsing. You've got political strife everywhere. People aren't talking to each other anymore. Violence all over the place. It's very easy to feel hopeless and feel like we're hurtling towards a technological dystopia, especially when you take into account that your algorithms, the social media platforms that you're on right now, are actively trying to hijack your attention by giving you exactly what it is you want at any given moment, which is effectively, maybe it's turning your brain into mush, whatever. I don't want to focus on those things. And what I'd like to do, if you're open to it, is spend a few minutes, just you and me, developing a little bit of optimism, because truthfully, we're not going to get anywhere, and we're certainly not going to survive unless we're oriented towards a sense of optimism. But this isn't something that we get by burying our head in the sand. We don't just inject ourselves with a shot of optimism. We have to cultivate it for ourselves. We have to train it through some very specific actions. So what we'll do today in this very low stimulation video, which I think you might find helpful from a psychological perspective, what we're going to do is we're going to talk through 5 core skill sets that we need as human beings navigating the 21st century, navigating the age of consumption. If we can develop these skill sets, then A, we stand a chance, and B, we might actually be able to enjoy our time and really create for ourselves a meaningful life. And I think that would be awesome if we could do that. Now, this isn't necessarily going to be easy, but what I can promise you is that it's accessible to you right now. It is. Everything we're about to talk about is something that you can start right now. So if you've been waiting for what do I do? Everyone's talking about the problem, but no one's giving me something to do. It's like, start with this. Start with this and just scale it back to the level that you can do right now. Because I promise you, you can do something. Okay, let's do this. Number 1, we have to be able to acknowledge the truth. This is a form of confrontation. Okay, so there are some bad, scary things happening, and we don't need to zoom in on any one of them right now, because I know you're acutely aware of what they are. Can you look at them in the face? Can you say to yourself, this is happening? Can you exist in the discomfort that is that truth for about 5 seconds without running away from it? It's hard, especially because you can distract yourself at any moment. That's one of the reasons why we are constantly numbing ourselves and turning to sources of consumption, because that distracts us from the pain of what is a very uncomfortable, scary truth. But can you look at the things in the face, right? I'm not saying you need to bombard yourself with bad news. You don't need to be constantly tuned into all of the negativity. But can you exist in the knowledge that there are scary things happening? Can you learn to seek the truth? Now, this is going to get a little bit shifty because people aren't really talking to each other anymore. If you disagree politically, it's very easy to just not pay attention to anyone on this side. And I'm not even going to listen to you, or I'm not going to talk to you. And I'm not going to blame you for that right now. We'll navigate that polarization a little bit later. For right now, though, can you train yourself to seek the truth, which really just means being able to think for yourself? So when you're hit with a piece of truth, piece of news, can you filter it through Can you filter it on your own? Can you think it through on your own? Can you seek additional sources of information to back it up, just to develop your own ideas, rather than adopting the ideas that everyone else is hitting you with? That's going to be a core skill set in the information age, because there's a lot of misinformation going around. And as AI gets better, it's only going to get harder and harder to distinguish what photographs are legitimate, what is real and what's not. You have to be able to trust yourself, and you do this by learning to seek the truth, learning to face the truth, learning that core skill set of confrontation with reality. So we'll get into this a little bit later, but that would be skill set number 1. Number 2 is training in general. The skill set of being able to train your body and your mind. The skill set of practice. And so to make this really simple, you need a physical practice and you need a mental practice. You need to train your physical body and you need to train your mind. And if you can do those 2 things, you are actively conditioning yourself for a culture that's trying to make you weaker, softer, more vulnerable. Because we're surrounded by so much instant gratification, we're surrounded by pleasure all the time, we actually have to take it upon ourselves to introduce challenge and to regulate it on our own, right? You have to dose yourself with it. In the beginning, this doesn't need to be insanely grueling on either of those fronts. You don't need to, spend 10 hours a day reading or running or something like that. But can you set aside 5 to 20 minutes a day for each of those things, right? Can you just start reading a book that's on your bookshelf? It doesn't really matter what it is. There's no one perfect way to do this. The main thing is prioritizing it, and the consistency will take care of itself from there. If you could just do 5 to 20 minutes a day, you're actively doing more than most people. And I'm not saying that because you want to be the 1% or you want to beat 99% of people right now. For you specifically, it's going to be really important to have this skill set in your life of being able to train yourself. Okay, that's number 2. Number 3 is delayed gratification. Okay, just being able to push off a reward for a set period of time. That's going to be pretty important because we have an instant gratification culture, right? At any given moment, you can give yourself a little shot of pleasure, a little shot of distraction, without any effort attached to it. So by doing the training, this will kind of take care of itself. But you can see this skill set of delayed gratification play out in other areas of your life because you'll be able to commit yourself to projects that don't have an immediate payoff. This is what the human race needs to do in general, right? We have to take a more longer-term approach because our short-term thinking has created a system that's destroying the planet and culture and things like that. So if we as the individuals, though, can take care of delayed gratification, the human race will take care of itself. And that's an idea from Carl Jung, who we'll talk about later. The power to save the world lies with the individual, right? You can't just go out and change everyone else. But if you do focus on what you yourself can do, then you're pretty much taking care of it, or you're doing more than you might realize just by doing this. So, if you go through these 3 things so far, learning to face the truth, both in society and within yourself, if you can train your body and your mind through physical practice and reading 5 to 20 minutes a day, right? Going for a walk, doing a few push-ups, watching a YouTube video on stretching, movement practice, reading some short stories, reading articles by creators who you like, whatever it is, right? If you can just consciously consume information that expands your mind and challenges you, that's the training. If you can build the delayed gratification, if you're doing all of that as an individual, you are actively doing your part. Like, don't overlook how much that contributes to the human race, because as more people do that, the effect compounds. And so just focus on what you can control for right now, which is your immediate daily actions. All of these things so far are things that you can start with. Okay, moving on. Number 4 is going to be the collective growth through leadership. And so we kind of just touched on this, but as you develop these skill sets within yourself, you're going to be able to lead by example. You're going to take others with you. And you really just do this through enthusiasm. By engaging with the other human beings in your world, they're going to see what you're up to, right? And you, out of excitement in taking care of yourself and giving yourself something more engaging to do, you'll have an enthusiasm about you that is palpable and is going to make other people want to follow in your footsteps. And so rather than stepping into the role of like a guru or like what you're doing, you're just going to share your enthusiasm for all of this. And people will respond to it. And what you don't realize, but just by focusing on all of these positive additions to your life, the negative substances like scrolling, like porn, like vaping, like weed, like all the cheap dopamine, like that's just going to decrease on its own. And so rather than having to focus on subtracting it, you're going to be doing all of these fun additional things that are challenging, but challenging in a good way, the kind of challenge that you want as a human being. And so then you'll be sharing it with other people. You will be taking others with you. And this is where the collective growth comes in. Don't overlook this. I mean, this is true leadership. It's leadership through action. You can't, that's what it looks like. Okay. And then lastly is going to be optimism. And again, this is not something that you get by burying your head in the sand or saying it's going to be okay no matter what. It's like, no, we already acknowledge some of the negative truths that are occurring, right? We can look at reality in the face and say, this is not great. But the optimism comes through the action, right? You don't just get into an optimistic frame of mind and then take the positive actions to take care of yourself. You develop the optimism through the engagement in the meaningful activities, which is not easy to do, right? Like, optimism isn't just a permanent smiley face. There's something that's inherently uncomfortable about it, especially when life is hard. But there's an optimism in getting up with your alarm in the morning. There's an optimism in doing the dishes, right? Even when you don't have all the different areas of your life figured out, just by going through the basic motions of taking care of yourself. That is a vote of confidence in yourself. That is a vote of faith into your future, and it's worth it. It's worth it. That's where your mental infrastructure gets stronger, and where you have more trust in yourself to take care of yourself, and then ultimately to take care of other people. So, don't overlook the little things. That's really what optimism looks like in practicality. It comes through action. It comes through execution. Now, final point here, all of these things are scalable, right? Bring them down to your level. The most important thing is not the most important thing is not the intensity or the level of the task. It's just you engaging with it. So if you can just go through the motions of doing each of these things, right? Looking reality in the face, acknowledging truth, learning to seek it and think for yourself, training your mind and body through physical practice and mental practice, reading and writing. If you can delay gratification, right? Just recognize the moments in your day-to-day life when you can practice that, like when your phone buzzes because you have your notifications on and you choose consciously not to look at it because you're in the middle of something. Although really you should have notifications off when you're engaged in deep work or meaningful work. Anyway, when you do that, or when you're leading others, right? When you're sharing your enthusiasm with other people and bringing them with you. And then lastly, when you're engaged in active optimism by doing the dishes, getting up with your alarm, organizing your wardrobe, driving your sister to the airport because she needs a ride, just doing something nice for someone else. You can always find one tiny way to practice each of those things. And if you can do that, then you are actively preparing yourself for a potential technological dystopia, right? The powerful figures up top, they want us to be isolated. They want us to be in our little bubbles of instant gratification. They want us to not talk to each other. They want us to become victim to identity politics and polarization and such a deep loneliness that the only comforts we can get from ourselves are through the instant gratification of our sensory self, right? They want us to be our most base, primal animal beings with absolutely no ability to think at a higher level, pursue deeper truths, challenge ourselves, or connect with others. Because a society of people that can do that is pretty strong, is pretty well defended against misinformation and totalitarianism and all the things that we read about in the dystopian fiction we were raised on. So, recognize that rebellion lies within your control, and it lies within your ability to take care of yourself. And take leadership of your situation, which ultimately is what leads others. And these are all things you can do right now, today. You can think about these things while you're at work. I mean, that's the liberation of your mind, right? In the information age, in the age of consumption. So, these things they can be easy, but they're also epic. Like, this is quite the hero's journey when you think about the challenges you are faced with as an individual and that society is faced with. So, I don't know. Just a thought. But you're not helpless. I mean, that's the last thing. That's maybe the worst thing you can do for yourself right now, is think that you're helpless. Think that there's nothing you can do but subject yourself to all of the instant gratification and sensory pleasures and systems of oppression that are governing the human race right now. I mean, just keep in mind, humans haven't actually been around for that long, and so what we're going through right now probably is a form of adolescence, right? Humanity is actively growing up, and we're going through the growing pains of our time. Now, that's a really macro view. I'm not trying to minimize some of the really horrible things that are happening right now, but as a species, that's what we're going through. So you can take responsibility for yourself and contribute to the maturation of humanity by stepping into by developing your own maturity and taking care of yourself, which is really what you have to do to be an adult. If you can do that as an individual, we can do that as a society, as a collective, and we're going to be okay. Not going to be easy, but it will 100% be worth it. And remember that as you do these things, your life will inherently get more meaningful. Right? You won't have to worry about what's the purpose of life, what's the meaning of life, because you'll be, feeding it to yourself by engaging in these 5 skill sets. That's it. I think that's all we got. Hope you're having a great day. Keep your chin up. It's not easy. None of this is easy. But you're doing great. The fact that you're still here on this video, I mean, you're doing great, right? You're thinking about this stuff. Just keep it top of mind. Keep thinking about it. Keep watching videos that require you to think. Write down your ideas as you have them. Boom. I mean, that's already huge progress. Okay. That is all. Cheers. A little nitro cold brew. Much love. I'll see you next time. Peace.